Hello, everyone. Welcome to the March 2023 CLF-BOS New England Reuse Group meeting. Today, we have the distinct pleasure of having Stacy Simpson and Kyle Flondor from the USG Corporation to talk about their material take-back program for both clean gypsum drywall as well as ceiling tiles. To preface a little bit, while talking about reuse in this reuse group, we've talked in several meetings before this about the local region and how we're looking to really prioritize deconstruction and material reuse. Fundamentally, right now in the reuse ecosystem, we have some materials cannot be adequately put back into circulation through exact reuse. A lot of times, some of these materials in buildings and construction need to have a recycling program. And with the advent of extended producer recycle, extended manufacturer responsibility and manufacturer take-back programs, there have been items such as ACT and carpet tile. We've discussed before in different meetings how gypsum wallboard has been quite a problem, has plagued the region, whether it's sturdy gypsum wallboard coming out of demo sites or clean gyp coming off of new projects. Both have caused quite a problem for processors in the area, leading to fines, contamination, and then ultimately, if put in landfill, hydrogen sulfide, which is no good. So with that, I'll give it to Kyle and Stacy to present on their take-back program. Please look to either put questions in the chat or hold them until afterwards. We've reserved 10 to 15 minutes for a Q&A. So Kyle, if you'd like to share the screen.
I can go ahead and do it, Kyle.
Thanks. There we go.
Yeah, I'll let you take that away, Stacy. You'll be driving the ship today for sure. So I guess quick introduction. So this will be my little snippet right now. Is Kyle Flondor. I'm the USG Wallboard product manager, so responsible for our sheetrock and Secure Rock branded products. So essentially anything that goes vertical on a wall in the interior, exterior of the building that includes a gypsum core, I help with. Prior to this role, my background's really on the technical side. I led a lot of USG's efforts relative to both standards and code development, so heavily involved with ASTM, ICC, and others. And for 15 years, I was doing the technical side. I worked at UL for 10 plus years, and then at USG for 5 years on the standards side. Stacy, it's all yours.
I'm Stacy Simpson. I'm the sustainability manager at USG. Background is in environmental engineering, but I've been with USG for a good 10 years now. I get my hands into everything from carbon to what we're going to talk about today. So I did first off want to say thank you very much for the opportunity to discuss our wallboard reclaim program with you. We do appreciate any comments or questions or feedback that you could give us. And I did want to say a little bit about the background of USG. USG was founded in 1902. Our headquarters is in Chicago. We have about 51 manufacturing plants in North America. And then we're mostly known for inventing sheetrock panels. And that's going to be the topic of my presentation today. So in 2022, we made our 2030 sustainability goals public. We signed up for the Science Based Targets Initiative and committed to a scope 1 and 2 emissions reduction of 30%. We will provide transparency documents for 100% of our products. We're reducing waste and water used in manufacturing, and one of our major goals is that we will become the leader in construction job site reclaim for gypsum panels. So in the 70s, we started to recycle internal drywall waste back into the manufacturing process. And today we do have that capability to do this in just about every manufacturing plant we have. We all know that installation process for wallboard and many other building materials creates a lot of waste. So I believe that wallboard scrap is generally like 11% waste in a typical construction site. And the majority of that does go to a landfill. But we are making it an option to recycle the clean wallboard scrap from your job site. So we have launched our Wallboard Take Back program. It's been live for a couple of months now. And what we are asking our customers to do is to drop clean construction scraps off back at the USG manufacturing plant. Right now, we only have the capability of taking back some of our products, but that's going to change in the future. And the reason we're just doing the USG branded products is that we're responsible for the warranty. We can't speak on what our competitors are doing. So right now, with it being such a new program, we're just concentrating on the USG branded panels. And this is actually what we're taking back at this time. It's regular wallboard panels and the fire rated panels. At this time, we don't have the capability of doing the glass mat panels or the mold tough panels. And I will stress that what we're taking back is clean waste from the job site. We can't do demo waste at this time. We can't do anything commingled. So we're trying to make the process as simple as possible. What we'd like to happen is that you would reach out to us at reclaim@usg.com, and then we would facilitate the actual program or the process that's going to take place. There is some type of contract that allows you on the premises of our property, that you will be dumping clean wallboard scrap at the facility. And this is a map of all of our USG plants that are participating at this time. All the wallboard plants. And then the last step in the process is us just giving you some documentation for the reclaim program. We can do tonnage. We could even calculate the embodied carbon or calculate any type of carbon that was done in the process. And that's it. I know that sounded way too simple, but I hope everybody has questions.
I do.
Yeah, ready. If you want to go ahead, sure.
Question. So right now you're just doing the clean stuff.
Yeah.
So it's going to have the label on the side to determine that it's USG, that little paper strap that goes down the side. Well, how do you figure that out? Where I understand the commingling stuff you're talking about because of maybe the older Chinese stuff that was out and you guys making sure it's your product. But how would you determine that it's yours? I haven't seen a stack of clean rocks. So I don't know if it's stamped all over the place. It's going to be obvious or.
Yeah, I could jump in here, Stacy. So no, it's not going to require that that end tape that's on there to be there. It's not going to require that it be of a size such that printing's available. Part of that will be the agreement about the separation responsibilities on the site, making sure that it's only USG products that go into it. We do conduct analysis. We can conduct analysis at our plants and determine if the formulation that the materials that are present are in fact within our own formulations, or if those are present from others. So part of it is the procedurally the thoroughness of the sorting on the site itself.
Correct. So would that give, just say I was bringing this to Montreal, that's the closest place I see, which is doable. But the question is, do you need a sample ahead of time, or do you get it and I send a load and it gets rejected? I mean,
yeah, no, these are all really good questions. Yeah, these are the perfect questions to be asking. Right now, no, it doesn't require a sample ahead of time. You know, part of the process is as we go through and look at the feasibility of the program for any given project. A lot of contractors are really familiar with our products. We have existing relationships with a lot of the contractors, so they have familiarity with our products. And through that, there's for lack of a better term, a trust and understanding that they're able to, identify our products, separate those products out. Part of it is maintaining, building on that trust so that we do source separate. We do ensure that it's just our materials that are going in there, so that in the event, or we want to make sure that other materials aren't going in there that compromise sort of that trust going forward and the ability to maintain a program like this going forward.
Right. So you're not making Chinese drywall.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. Yeah, to what Stacy spoke about. We want to make sure that we know what's going into it. Our quality control procedures are incredibly strict. So we want to make sure that we know exactly what's going into it. Certainly excluding overseas product, and at this time even excluding other North American manufactured products.
Right, and once again about the manufacturing, I'm not familiar with the competition, but don't you kind of have a monopoly? I mean, don't you sell like 80% of the drywall?
I would love if it was that number, but it's not quite that high. But we do have the largest market within North America. We also have the largest network within North America, which is where we really want to be able to leverage that. We think that USG provides the greatest opportunity. Because we've got the most board going out. So ideally we'd be able to have the most board coming back and avoiding going into landfill. And then also with the broadest network, providing the most opportunity for essentially a drop-off site.
All right. Another question. Now, as far as sorting goes, you got like 5 different colors going on. Where you got the light green stuff, you got the gray stuff, you got the purple stuff. Does that have to be separated accordingly?
So it would in that example, 2 of those would not qualify. So this program is more or less for the standard whiteboard, the traditional board that you'd go in there. That green board, the mold and moisture resistant, that's the mold tough that Stacy referred to. It has formulation enhancers, I'll call them, within both the core and the paper that at this time we're not going to include in the take back program because of the additional processing, the additional work that goes into it in order to be able to bring it back into our manufacturing process. The purple boards and other manufacturers, so that would be excluded. So within the list of products that Stacey identified on that sheet, the standard whiteboard, they pretty much all look the same. So of that list of the dozen different products, they would not need to be separated. As long as it falls on that column on the left, it can be mixed. It can be any ratio or anything like that. So no additional sorting on that front.
And last question, just when do you think something's going to happen with the demolition wallboard?
Oh man. It'll never be soon enough, I'll say. But at the same time, following this now for the last couple of years, I think we're making significant progress there. It's something that's always been really difficult to do. Processors have been able to take it in and send it into to different industries dependent on the composition. So hopefully it's something that is would be able to be utilized, specific to our industry I'll say minimized processing, not required to go through a special processor for it in order to accommodate that.
Could you send me a link to, what I'd like to see is, send me a link to your process that you're doing the clean stuff. I mean, I've come up with, thought about a few different ideas, and I was just up my friend who shreds tires. So looking at falsifiers and so forth, that if I'd like to see exactly how you guys, and I think it would be the same way. It's getting down to a chemical thing because it's used versus clean is for the added process that would be due to used drywall, correct?
That's a primary part of it. The others is the contamination that comes along with primers, with paints, with compounds that might be on there, facing materials, adhesives, insulations, everything else that might be on there. So it might be, I shouldn't say it might be, with the demolition, it's certainly more, there are a greater variety of contaminations that come up comparative to just one manufacturer's, I'll call it like unadulterated core board versus another one. So
Right. I'm just really interested in seeing what your end product is.
The end product?
The end product of, is it dust? Is it look like sugar? When you guys run the clean stuff through the machine, and that's what I'm saying, I don't know if you have like videos or anything on that, or
no, nothing. It actually goes into it's rather simplistic. Is it goes into the manufacturing process, the milling process, just alongside our other gypsum sources, whether it be a natural rock or it be a synthetic or reclaimed gypsum. It just becomes a ratio. So if we think of the recipe that's going into this cake that's going to become our sheetrock, it's just a small ingredient that goes in right during the process. So it's not entirely it's not processed separately to get back to a purity level. So the advantage of and the requirement for our current items accepted are because it doesn't require that additional sort of processing at our plants. Our plants are able to take it and at a particular ratio, put it right back in with our I'll call them traditional gypsum sources and start the process right there.
yeah, no, I get that. I just didn't know what kind of feeder, when you come with a truckload of clean stuff and you dump it in a hopper and it goes up a conveyor, that process, is it a bunch of barrels running? Because my thought was always crushing that would be a problem of it gumming up and how you fed it through the different series of barrels, and that's what I'm interested in.
No, you could be a processor yourself. That gumming it up and clogging the system is exactly one of the limitations that comes with the enhanced products, the glass mat products and the mold and moisture resistant that have these moisture inhibitors within the core. Is when they go back into the milling and manufacturing process, they do collect in a different way. So the standard whiteboard, when it goes into its, you could oversimplifying it, but if you were to take a handful of our traditional gypsum source and a handful of the clean scrap, put them on that same conveyor belt, they're going through the same barrels being turned, they're going through the exact same milling process, calcining process, everything else. So they're from the moment they're picked up and added into the sequence of steps for the sheetrock manufacturing process, there's no difference. Like there's not additional processing on the front side relative to removing certain aspects of the recipe or the formulation. So it's right in there, like for like, with the natural or the traditional gypsum sources.
Well, and that's what I'm asking. I mean, I'm potentially thinking of processing some, you know, to get an end product, but I don't know this big meat grinder that you have is what I'm asking.
It varies from one plant to the next. So that, and I wouldn't think of it as necessarily like a big meat grinder, like, but breaking it down, you know, sometimes and this is another thing about the program. There's a reason why it's 3 steps, is because we want it to be as flexible and accommodating as possible. There's not a requirement that the panels have to be full size, or it needs to be minimum 4x4 panel size. So there's not a minimum size of the scrap. There's not a maximum size of the scrap. There's not a minimum quantity, a maximum, like that is totally open. It's flexible, and I suppose that's it. There's no additional processing of the material itself, the reclaimed material.
Right.
Connor, I saw you had a bunch of questions in the chat. If you want to start asking yours.
Sure. And I think I was echoing someone's comment here. Let me go back and see. Yeah, I think Harik had a similar question. Are you working with collection facilities or waste districts, or is this case by case with customers? Which I think is similar to the question I followed up with. I think we might have been typing at the same time. Are you anticipating receiving project loads, as a contractor, or receiving loads from MRFs? I think, is it Randy that mentioned that, the closest place is Montreal. So, I can tell you, we're not going to be hauling project dumpsters to Montreal, but what might make sense is we'd have a localized MRF that collects the stuff and segregates it. And I don't know if they can rail it up there or drive it up there. And then a couple of follow-ups were, when you talked about the clarification from talking to other manufacturers, it seemed like the white or gray paper faced was the criteria. So all the colors and anything that's got fiberglass in it or those chemicals is not in it. So just for clarification, is all paper face board white or gray? Is that really a good litmus test, or is there some white or gray that can't go in if it's moisture or it has other chemicals? And then lastly, to kind of cut through all this, I don't know if you already do this, but if you know that you're starting in earnest a recycling program for clean cutoffs, it'd be awesome if, like, the back of these panels, because we're trying to educate the field on this, if the back of the panels you want back actually said recyclable all over them, and then the ones that are different colors or whatever are not labeled as recyclable, that might help in the field as far as actually, if they're doing a bathroom in a corridor, and it's to educate the guys, like, okay, these panels go to the trash, these ones go in the recycling. If the panel itself explained that, it might be helpful.
That's good. So try to hold us honest in replying to all of the questions. So I'll go in no particular order. The litmus test of the color, it is relatively that easy right now. So for the list of the products that can come back from USG, yeah, they're all that color. But that shouldn't be the education, the communication that we're having to the contractor, whomever's sorting it on the site. It shouldn't be color. It should be about the particular product, and then working together of all those on site with USG as well, saying, okay, of all the products that you're going to have on site, let's make up a number. You've got 6 different unique products going on site. These 4 can be recycled, therefore they should go into this one hopper. These other 2 do not qualify, therefore they should be segregated out.
The quick follow-up, just so you had somebody shared a nice slide that said, like, these are the recyclable on one half and these are not. So everything on the recyclable side is white or gray, and everything on the not recyclable side is not white or gray, or is there white or gray mixed in there?
Everything's that's on the recyclable is white or gray from USG.
Right.
Stuff on the right side, it may be white or gray. So an example is non-USG manufactured wallboard. It may be white or gray.
Okay, so it hasn't been color coded yet. So white or gray is not a pass fail. You don't know if it could be white or gray and still not recyclable.
If it's USG white or gray, you're good to go. But then this may also change. Stacy said earlier that, like, right now the program doesn't include glass mat or our mold tough branded products, our mold and moisture resistant. We have every intention of that changing in the future. When it changes in the future, as well as where it changes in the future, can vary. So for example, maybe it's a processing thing that we accommodate in New England before we do the Midwest. So the program, the communication would then have to be specifiable to that level. So right now, in initiating it, calling it out like as the whiteboard is the oversimplification of it. We have every intention of those rules certainly changing, which is the importance of having the communication up front, pre-planning this of, where is the project? What are the materials that are going to be on the project, and going through item by item and saying these are the ones that qualify, these are the ones that don't qualify.
Yeah, I
And
think,
again,
but I think you're, sorry to interrupt, but I think you're either I'm misunderstanding or maybe you're missing that the person that's actually picking up the scraps is not necessarily going to be educated to like, is this a mold tough panel or whatever? So the person doing the ordering and understanding that is a different person than the person that's actually has to do the sorting in most cases, I'd say, if not all cases. So that's where, if the guy's, eighth language is English, then, he's smarter than me because he knows 8 languages, but me trying to communicate to him, this is a USG mold tough panel and it goes in this bucket. Like, that's why the color coordination would be really handy if you guys aren't already working on it, or some sort of labeling system, because that's maybe a gap in what I'm hearing.
Yeah, so I'll say right now, color coordination is not going to be a direction that's taken. That won't, because there's too many nuances that go into it by manufacturer, by location, etc. What it comes down to is the education. So the conversations that we've had with different projects where this is occurring, with the different customers where this is occurring, really it comes down to education and communication. So earlier I mentioned that there's a lot of contractors that are really familiar with our products. So the initial instances where this has been successful and is being employed is with those project stakeholders that already have some familiarity with the product, so that they know if they see that green board, like, okay, that doesn't go there. For those where it's their 8th language or they're new to USG, we need to make sure that we emphasize the importance in going through. So USG becomes a partner to it. It's not, we just announce that, hey, we've got a program that's got 3 easy steps, send us your stuff. It's no, we get engaged with it. We're part of it in the pre-planning. We're part of it in the education. Depending on the location, we may go there. There's, a project coming up in Chicago where I'm sure Stacy and I will be on that project site, helping with the education, making sure that it's going properly and stuff's getting sorted. So you are absolutely highlighting a lot of the risks that are involved with a program like this, which is why it may not have succeeded before, but now as there's more of an emphasis and a need for it, we have to overcome sort of these hazards and risks that are associated with it.
What about the recycle? So one of counterpoints, and he has to like having either like on the board itself, just stampage, like even if it's a watermark, recyclable, I think would be really helpful for both. I mean, I've also worked for a contractor, just in kind of saying, hey, listen, it's not going to be color coded, but we know for a fact, hey, it says right here, either very, like say, watermark across it, or even on the paper itself. Is that a possibility going forward?
Yeah, it's something we can look into. Absolutely. I think that's a more manageable change. Would require fewer changes. It'd be more accomplishable, I'd say. Where the other ones get into these questions.
I have a similar question that Connor asked, and I think others had asked. So by having the closest to our area, the manufacturing plant is I think it was Montreal, and then there are some, I believe, in Pennsylvania. Because it is outside of the region of New England, would there ever be any kind of collaboration with distributors or kind of processing facilities to conglomerate this, to make it so, hey, if contractors can assure that you will be getting what you need, but I only have this much from a job site in New England, is there any way of kind of either working together or collaborating to either combine all these loads and get them there, or just even just get them there?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're in this part, we're just a small cog in the wheel, and maybe even in the overall capabilities of recycling, this recycling program, this process, we're one of the smaller cogs in the wheel, to be honest. So whether it's coordination through a distributor, so maybe that's how a distributor adds value to their customers, is by being able to take back and collect, consolidate clean scrap. Maybe it's coordination amongst other projects, finding a single site until you get enough for like throwing out like a rail car to have it railed then to a plant, because all of our plants are able to accept rails as well. So that sort of flexibility, that openness to, as long as at the end of the day it's that clean scrap and it gets to our plant, any sort of coordination, parties involved, where it's collected, when it's collected, the volume in which it's collected, we are open to accommodating. And then with that, like what USG could help do is the existing relationships that we have with distributors. Seeing once we assess and see a certain level of interest within a region, like, so this conversation that we're having today is really important. This is the feedback that Stacey was asking about at the beginning of. Right now, we're not certain how much interest there's going to be. So if we see within a particular region that there is interest, but there doesn't happen to be a plant that's right around the corner, which is where we're fortunate in Chicago that we have a plant just a few miles away. It makes it really easy where we can do it by plant. Like, we legitimately have a customer that takes a pickup truck. He's a small contractor. He takes a pickup truck and a trailer at the end of each week and goes and drops it off there. That's really easy. That was really easy to do. But where there's greater distance, there needs to be the ability to make it feasible with the idea of sustainability in mind. You shouldn't have to transport something a quarter of the way across the country, defeating the idea, the intent of the sustainable approach. Okay. Working with collection facilities, waste districts, case by case. So, building on this, right now it is a case by case, but what we want to build on is when there's interest from a project, a customer in Boston who may, unbeknownst to them, there's similar interest in another project in Boston. We put those together and see if, together there's some synergy that can occur in collecting materials or taking it back to a common distributor. So at this case, again, the reason why there's only those 3 steps is it's really easy to hit 3 steps. We want the guardrails to be very wide in terms of strategically how it happens, or strategically, or I should say tactically how it happens, how we actually execute it. We want it to be very wide. Strategically, it's just those materials. Min quantity requirements, no, there's no minimum quantity. That would be something that would be discussed like on a case-by-case basis, on a project-by-project basis, depending on the material, depending on the plant, coordinating where it would be able to go. It's building on that. It's really simplistic in the return process. It's legitimately, it could be in a roll off. It can be on the back of a trailer where it's just simply pushed off onto the ground next to a pile. So there isn't a min or max quantity in that regard. It's all about the material, the cadence in which it's being returned to be able to accommodate that.
With Con Stacey, we had talked about this just kind of offline in a different meeting, but I'll ask it here. What do you need kind of from, we typically have designers here. I see that Kathleen's here. But what do you need, say, from designers or contractors here? What can the building industry do to kind of help and push this for you?
The $1 million question. And Stacey, I definitely want your input on this as well, because this is just my single perspective, is that I think it's most important for the idea, the discussion of this process to occur all the way in that front end design stage, where we want the communication from the front end to discuss this. I don't think we're not going to have as much success with it if it's just maybe this can happen, maybe this can happen. It gets down to the subcontractor, and the subcontractors then ask, like, hey, can you execute this? Like, knowing that this is something that the designer, the building owner wants to execute, and it be known to, to the project lead, to the GC when it's going on, that this is something that they should be working with, that they should work with, identify subs that are familiar with this process, that there's not a formal qualification, but they should work with subs that are maybe familiar with the products, have experience with it, not going to new guy Kyle down the street that just gives them the lowest price to hang some board because I'm not going to be able to sort it out.
And I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head, because it's just, it has to be designed, or the job has to, it has to be started with knowing that this is something that's going to take place. And I know that this is going to be very difficult to do for everyone. You know, job sites are chaotic as it is.
Thanks for asking that question, Michael. And there was another question sort of earlier on, and I apologize if I missed a response to this, but in the cases where, you know, we're trying to push forward sustainability initiatives, and it may not necessarily be a goal of the owner, there was a question about financial incentives or benefits to the customers.
So in
Is that-
incentives, no, right now there are no specific incentives, no direct, but the indirect avoidance of tipping fees. So there's not a buyback program, but you know, it's a take back program, not a buyback program, but it's the avoidance of tipping fees. So that's something that goes into the balance of the feasibility on a given project, and then trying to broaden that out and looking at ways of determining the financial feasibility of it, and that's where I think that we're going to end up as this evolves and matures, that it's going to go from 16 wallboard plants between the US and Canada into those 16 wallboard plants plus dozens of collection points where it's something that's much easier. So you avoid the tipping fee while dropping it off close to the project site.
Yeah, that's critical.
Something I have seen in both projects that have been kind of won and are working on, and kind of RFPs coming in. I work for an interior contractor in Boston, is that there are specifications now that not only are mandating high waste diversion percentages, but are actually stating certain materials that cannot be thrown out in landfill. I've seen multiple of those now that have stated clean gyp drywall. Knowing that that's kind of where obviously the more sophisticated clients are, given the region that we're in. Pushing forward with that, do you see, as that grows, kind of right now there is a small need for it? Granted, I see some departments of environmental protection, things like that, and there's a big gypboard problem, a lot of demo. But as this necessity grows and contractors have to do it and project teams have to do it, how quickly could either kind of, because right now it's a case-by-case basis, how quickly could some sort of collaborative effort, or I'm not saying a new plant be built, but could this be a reality? Really, how quickly?
The specific timing, I don't know for that, but the quantification of it, I don't know. The qualification, can it be a reality? Yeah, I fully suspect that it's going to be a reality. I participate in the Gypsum Association. I don't know how familiar any of you are with the Gypsum Association. It's the 6th largest gypsum panel manufacturers in North America, and an industry collective to help drive use, innovation within the industry relative to gypsum. And I'm on a task group right now that is essentially looking at what you just asked, Michael, of like, what can we do regionally that can help accelerate this? Are there ways, like, as there becomes legislation that may push this, it goes from a desire, a want by those altruistic building owners who might be able to do it, the Metas and the Apples of the world, where the financial cost doesn't matter to them, but it becomes legislated where it has to occur. The Gypsum Association's working with state and federal agencies to say, this is a very large, complex problem that we have to solve. You can't just say gypsum needs to be recycled. There need to be processes in place to be able to accommodate that. It needs to be, whether it be the manufacturers' facilities themselves, or making the business case so that someone else wants to come and enter the market to be able to collect gypsum from contractors and then bring it back, or from the projects and then bring it back to manufacturers or processing it. So So how quickly can it happen? I think if it becomes legislated, the speed at which it occurs is going to also matter. How much support is provided to get the entire sort of process laid out, that it can't be solely on those that are involved in the project directly and those that are the manufacturers recycling it, but that there are multiple channels, opportunities for multiple channels between the project and the manufacturer, where ideally there would be a business case to bring in others that would make it viable at that accelerated pace.
Is there any sort of take back specification that USG offers that designers can put into projects to kind of bind them? An example would be Shaw flooring contractor with their EcoWork product has a exact kind of language and spec section that can be put in and then bind subcontractors later to it. Does USG have anything like that?
I love that question. Right now it's no, but we are actively working on it. So that will be a different answer in the very near future.
Any other questions as we wrap up the Q&A?
I'd probably get 100, Mike. Couple things. Montreal is not out of the question at all. The fact that you don't have a tipping fee. I mean, I want to say there's at least 100 loads that go to Ohio every week coming out of Greater Boston.
Okay.
With product. And so me thinking Montreal is half the distance. But then the other part of it, how do you receive it now? I had sent a question. I'm new to this whole chat thing while we're zooming at the same time, so I don't even know if my questions got there. But when you receive it, is it in a dried container or is it open top? Because if you can't take it wet, trains are out anyway. Because
no, it can be wet. So the container, there isn't a specific container size, shape, or delivery method. You know, it could be on a trailer, it can be on a roll-off, it could be in a train car. So, and then the moisture content of it. So if it rained, you've got it in a dumpster and it rains, that doesn't prevent the material from being taken back. In the manufacturing process, as the product's being milled, broken into, and added back into the recipe that we're doing, that moisture content is measured and controlled through balances that take care of it. So the short answer is, doesn't matter the form that it comes back in, and yes, it can get wet. You don't have to worry about covering it and protecting it or anything like that.
Right. Now, do you have an estimate of, you wouldn't probably know how much is potentially recyclable in just say regionally. Have you guys put together anything with a guesstimate on your end on what you're missing? Or, you know, like you could say so many thousand square feet of sheets are being sold to X. And have you taken that data and figured out a percentage what the waste was? So you have an idea? I mean, like, because my quick math here was, you could send 2,000 yards to Montreal a week. But, and my guess is you probably have, if you had a sheet of sheetrock, most of them don't get messed with. So you took a sheet and said, all right, 3% of a sheet's waste. But you know how many sheets you sell, so you can say, determine what's actually being wasted here, for one. Then to have an idea of what you're going to produce or the need is to get it up there. Have you talked to your sales to see what they're selling regionally, just to give us an idea? That would be huge, because really all you need is a intermodal place locally here where this all gets rounded up, put together, shipped to you. End of story. But I think that information needs to be.
I have a couple of quick comments. I think that dovetail with Randy's comment there. I think it's Randy, right? You have R. Scott there. I miss Randy, right? Yeah. And then I'll let Kyle answer both of them because I think they're related. But it's obviously that list that you have of recyclable and not recyclable. You know, hopefully, especially if you're part of a bigger panel of the, you know, I think you said the 6 major manufacturers in the country, you know, obviously it'd be nice to get all of the things moved into that recyclable list. So that kind of get rid of half the problem is how do we actually get this stuff so it's recoverable and recyclable? And then I did put a little post up there that, you know, for years or decades, any place you purchase motor oil has to take it back by law in Massachusetts. And as far as collecting it and shipping it, I'm sure these places would all end up at a, you know, one of the MRFs anyway. But like, you know, if they're bringing down trailers or however they're getting the stuff to the distribution centers for supplying the drywall, you know, it might be nice if that, you know, I know Mass DEP, Michael Elliott's on the phone here. I don't know if he's got anything to do with this, but if it's starting to get banned from drywall, it's not exactly hazardous material, but it can't landfill it. You know, it would be nice if part of that reclaim structure was, yeah, if we sell it, then we'll take back the clean scraps and then they can get maybe collected by a Randy and shipped up or something like that. It just, you know, trying to fast forward 10 years and say, how does this work ultimately? Where does it get collected from? And it seems like the motor oil business is, yeah, you bring it back where you got it, and you know, that's part of selling it, and you know, that might impact the cost, but that's part of, you know, what has to happen if it has to be recovered. So if that's related, I think that's related to what Randy started off, so I'll put myself on mute and listen to your response.
Okay, so to the first question, the traditional number that's been used since probably like the mid 90s, late 90s for the amount of clean scrap on any given project is 10 to 15%. I think Stacy commented earlier the number of 11% going to landfill. So that's a good estimate. What we could think of is that the gypsum industry within North America produces 25 billion square feet of wallboard a year. So 10% of that is what the theoretical take back would be. So we're not talking about a small amount. We're talking about a significant amount. And because it can be a significant amount is where I have hope that it's we've demonstrated feasibility. That hope is now that it's also viable. As Stacy said earlier, each one of our facilities is capable of bringing back material, taking back material. The same can't be said for every manufacturing facility. That's where it's the onus is on the manufacturers to then be able to modify their processes, their equipment to be able to accommodate that. We absolutely have looked at those numbers. We're the same task group within the Gypsum Association is working with conducting studies to try to determine, is that 10 to 15% truly accurate? Is it to specific project types? Is it too regionalized? What is it? You know, get down into more granularity instead of just using 10 to 15 as a coverall for everything. So being looked into. As far as like a required take back, I think ultimately, like I think the best legislation is one that's led by the industry itself, that doesn't require a government to get in there and tell you what to do. So what I would like to see is, and I think what USG is doing is showing that, like, we're going to take the initiative now. We're going to partner. We're going to broadcast and educate this, that we can do it. We're not going to sit back and have others tell us what we need to do and what the rules are. People sitting, you know, in a big white building, you know, at state capitals or in DC, who don't know this process shouldn't be developing the rules. We need to get out. We need to be more proactive about it as an industry and work with all the stakeholders, from designers through GCs and subs, as well as the distributors and the different sort of, you know, opportunities that you guys mentioned here about collection centers, so that we can determine what's the best way to make it truly viable and help write those rules in that way. But at the end of the day, in that 10-year forward look that you had, hopefully it's something where it doesn't have to be dictated that you need to take this back. It's just something that the industry is doing. All the manufacturers are capable of doing it. All of the projects are capable of assisting in that process to accommodate that. That's certainly the ideal state.
Awesome. Well, it's 1:54. I'd like to thank Kyle and Stacy and USG for presenting on this. It is very much a hot topic, gypsum wallboard waste, and a lot of really great kind of forward thinking. And we're really excited to see in the region what projects can use this and what it can turn into.
Absolutely.
The only other item, not presentation related, and I won't keep everyone too long, and I hope I can share my screen properly, is that the CLF is partnering with Goody Clancy to have a happy hour. If my will open, great. And that will be during NUMOA later this month. I am home now, so why would this work, you know? Let's see if I can just share screen through this. And how embarrassing is this? There you go. So for those in the Boston area, please feel free to come out to, this will be sent along with the meeting notes and presentation from USG, but feel free on March 28th to come to the city. These Goody Clancy will be presenting next month on their care tool and using reused materials and looking at the embodied carbon of historic and adaptive reuse buildings. So feel free to come out to that. Other than that, I have no other news. So once again, thank the USG for presenting. We'll look to send out in the next week or so, next coming days, the meeting minutes presentation. And if anyone is curious or wants any contacts, please reach out to the CLF-Boston@gmail. If anyone is uncomfortable with having their contact shared, please let me know. If not, would love to connect multiple members of this group if they need to learn more information or want to know anything else. With that said, thank you, everyone.
I appreciate everyone's time, and I appreciate all the questions and comments. This is really, really valuable for Stacy and I to take back to our team and help move this forward. So please, you know, if any other questions and comments come up, please reach out. It's truly something that we're not going to be able to just do ourselves. As I mentioned, we're just one cog in the wheel. So this sort of opportunity to speak with you and get the feedback and understanding of what's going on in the field really helps us out as well. So thank you, and everyone have a great St. Patrick's Day and weekend.
Thank you. You too.
You also.
Thanks, everybody. Happy St. Pat's.